Hello there, and welcome to the Sleepy Science Society. Tonight, we are drifting downward into the deepest corners of our planet, where sunlight has never reached, and where the weight of the entire ocean presses down with a force that would crush almost anything from the surface world. We are descending into the realm of deep-sea creatures, organisms so strange and so beautifully adapted to their world that they seem to belong to another planet entirely. Before we begin this quiet journey into the abyss, I want to invite you to join our growing community of sleepy explorers. If you find peace in these gentle scientific adventures, consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. It helps other curious minds discover this calm corner of the internet, one restful soul at a time. But for now, all you need to do is settle in. Let your breathing slow. Allow your muscles to release their tension. Let your mind drift gently downward with me, past the sunlit surface, past the schools of familiar fish, down into the mysterious darkness where extraordinary life awaits. The ocean is not a single place. It is a series of worlds stacked vertically, each with its own rules, its own inhabitants, its own strange beauty. As we descend from the surface, the first thing we notice is the fading of light. Sunlight, that abundant energy that fuels forests and meadows, begins to weaken almost immediately upon entering the water. The ocean absorbs light in a particular order, filtering out colors one by one as if the water itself is a living prism working in reverse. Red light vanishes first, disappearing within the first 15 feet of depth. Orange follows shortly after, then yellow, then green. By the time we reach 200 feet below the surface, even the blue light that penetrates deepest is beginning to fade into a dim twilight. This is where the mesopelagic zone begins, a region scientists call the twilight zone, stretching from roughly 200 meters to 1,000 meters below the surface. Here, the light is not entirely gone, but it is faint, a ghostly remnant of the brilliance above. This is a threshold realm, a place where the rules of the sunlit world begin to break down and new adaptations take hold. The creatures here exist in a perpetual dusk, where the faint, downwelling light from above creates just enough illumination to cast silhouettes, but not enough to see clearly. It is a world of shadows and suggestions, where survival depends on being either invisible or capable of reading the subtlest changes in that fading glow. In this twilight realm, we encounter our first deep-sea residents, and they are already unlike anything from the surface. Fish here have large, sensitive eyes adapted to gather every available photon of light. Some have evolved tubular eyes that point upward, forever scanning the lighter waters above for the silhouettes of prey or the looming shapes of predators. Their bodies tend toward elongated forms, with reduced skeletons and muscles designed for efficiency rather than speed. Food is beginning to become scarce here, and every calorie must be carefully managed. But the most striking adaptation in the twilight zone is one that seems almost magical, a phenomenon so widespread in the deep ocean that it may be the most common form of communication on our entire planet. This is bioluminescence, the production of living light. Imagine drifting in that dim twilight, hundreds of feet below the surface, when suddenly a constellation of blue-green lights begins to pulse and flicker around you. Some lights are tiny pinpricks, like stars scattered across invisible bodies. Others are larger, glowing organs that pulse with rhythmic intensity. Still others flash in sudden bursts, like silent fireworks in the darkness. This is not magic. This is chemistry, and it is one of the most elegant solutions life has ever devised for surviving in the dark. Bioluminescence occurs through a chemical reaction between a light-emitting molecule called luciferin and an enzyme called luciferase. When luciferin combines with oxygen in the presence of luciferase, it undergoes oxidation and releases energy. But unlike most chemical reactions that release energy as heat, this reaction releases it almost entirely as light. It is what scientists call cold light, a process so efficient that nearly 100% of the energy becomes visible illumination rather than warmth. The reaction is controlled by the organism, switched on and off through complex biological mechanisms that allow precise timing and pattern. What makes bioluminescence even more remarkable is its evolutionary history. This ability did not evolve once and spread through inheritance. Instead, it has evolved independently at least 40 separate times across the tree of life. In the ocean alone, we find bioluminescent bacteria, jellyfish, squid, fish, crustaceans, and countless other organisms, each having discovered this chemical secret through its own evolutionary path. A recent study of ray-finned fishes found that bioluminescence evolved independently 27 separate times just within that group. This repeated evolution tells us something profound about the deep ocean. Light is so valuable here, so crucial for survival, that natural selection has driven dozens of unrelated lineages toward the same glowing solution. The purposes of bioluminescence are as varied as the creatures that produce it. In the darkness, light becomes a tool, a weapon, a message, and a disguise all at once. Many fish use bioluminescence for counter-illumination, one of the most clever camouflage strategies in nature. These fish, like the lanternfish, that number in the billions throughout the world's oceans, have rows of light-producing organs called photophores arranged along their undersides. When a predator looks up from below, it sees not the dark silhouette of prey against the faint light from above, but rather a fish that glows with exactly the same intensity as the background light. The prey essentially erases its own shadow, becoming nearly invisible against the dim twilight. This delicate balance requires constant adjustment as the fish moves through different depths, dimming or brightening its photophores to match the ever-changing light conditions. Other creatures use bioluminescence as a sudden defense. The vampire squid, despite its ominous name, is actually a gentle creature that feeds on marine snow, the constant rain of dead organic matter that drifts down from the surface waters. When threatened, it does not flee or fight. Instead, it releases a cloud of bioluminescent mucus that glows with an eerie blue light, creating a disorienting spectacle that confuses predators while the squid jets away into the darkness. This strategy, called a bioluminescent burglar alarm, has the added benefit of potentially attracting even larger predators to the scene, predators that might attack the squid's attacker. But perhaps the most fascinating use of bioluminescence is one that remains largely invisible to other creatures in the deep. The stoplight loosejaw is a fish with an extraordinary secret. Unlike most bioluminescent creatures that produce blue or blue-green light, the stoplight loosejaw generates red bioluminescence. This might not seem particularly special until you understand a crucial fact about the deep ocean. Almost no creatures here can see red light. The wavelengths of red light do not penetrate far into water, and over millions of years, most deep-sea animals have lost the ability to detect those wavelengths entirely. There is simply no evolutionary advantage to seeing a color that does not exist in your environment, except the stoplight loosejaw did something different. It evolved the ability to not only produce red light, but also to see it. Inside its eyes, it uses chlorophyll-based pigments, molecules usually found only in plants, to detect red wavelengths. This gives the fish a secret searchlight. It can illuminate prey with a beam of red light, clearly seeing the creatures it hunts while remaining completely invisible to them. The prey cannot see the red spotlight shining upon them, cannot see the predator approaching. It is the biological equivalent of having night vision goggles in a world where everyone else is blind. This adaptation is so rare, so specific, that the stoplight loosejaw is the only known animal to use chlorophyll pigments for vision. As we descend deeper, passing through the lower reaches of the twilight zone, the last traces of sunlight finally disappear entirely. We cross the threshold into the midnight zone, the bathypelagic region, which extends from roughly 1,000 meters down to 4,000 meters. Here, in absolute and perpetual darkness, bioluminescence becomes not just an advantage, but often a necessity. Recent studies using underwater cameras estimate that up to 76% of all macroscopic creatures in the water column possess the ability to produce light. In the benthic environment, the seafloor itself, the number drops to 41%, but this is still an astonishingly high proportion. These numbers suggest that in the largest habitat on Earth, the deep ocean, bioluminescence may indeed be the dominant form of communication among living things. In this darkness, we begin to encounter creatures that embody another strange phenomenon of the deep sea, one that seems to defy logic at first glance. We expect that in an environment of scarce food, extreme pressure, and bitter cold, animals would evolve to be small, to conserve energy and require fewer resources. Yet what we find instead are giants. The Japanese spider crab scuttles across the seafloor on legs that can span nearly 13 feet from tip to tip. The giant isopod, a creature that looks like an enormous pill bug, can grow to over 2.5 feet in length. The colossal squid, lurking in the deep waters around Antarctica, reaches lengths of 46 feet and possesses eyes the size of dinner plates, the largest eyes of any animal on Earth. These creatures are not just large, they are significantly larger than their shallow water relatives, sometimes dramatically so. This pattern is so consistent that scientists have given it a name: deep-sea gigantism. Understanding why animals grow so large in the deep requires us to think about the fundamental economics of life. Every living thing faces a trade-off between the energy it takes in and the energy it expends. In the deep ocean, food is extraordinarily scarce. The surface waters are where photosynthesis occurs, where microscopic plants harness sunlight to create the organic matter that feeds the marine food web. But the deep ocean receives no sunlight, no photosynthesis, no primary production. Nearly all food in the deep must rain down from above in the form of marine snow, a gentle, continuous fall of dead organisms, fecal matter, and organic particles. This material has already been picked through multiple times by creatures in the layers above, and by the time it reaches the bathypelagic zone, it is thoroughly depleted of nutrients. In such an environment, we might expect natural selection to favor small, energy-efficient bodies. Yet the opposite occurs, and the explanation lies in a principle called Kleiber's rule. This biological law states that as animals increase in size, their metabolism becomes more efficient. Specifically, an animal's metabolic rate scales not directly with its mass, but approximately to the 3/4 power of its mass. What this means in practical terms is that a creature twice as heavy does not need twice as much food. It needs only about 75% more food. Larger animals are simply more efficient at converting food into energy and maintaining their bodies. This efficiency becomes crucial in the food-scarce deep ocean. A large body can store more energy reserves, allowing the animal to survive for extended periods without eating. Giant isopods, for instance, have been observed in captivity surviving for over 5 years without food, living off stored reserves. When food does appear, perhaps in the form of a dead whale falling from above, a large animal can gorge itself, distending its body enormously, storing energy for the long famine ahead. A larger body also generates and retains heat more effectively than a small one due to the ratio of surface area to volume. A small animal has a high surface area relative to its volume, which means it loses heat quickly to the surrounding cold water. A large animal has comparatively less surface area per unit of volume, so it retains heat better, requiring less energy to maintain body temperature. Temperature itself plays a crucial role in deep-sea gigantism through what scientists call Bergmann's rule. This principle observes that warm-blooded animals tend to be larger in colder climates. The deep ocean is cold, hovering around 2 to 4 degrees Celsius throughout the bathypelagic zone. This frigid temperature slows metabolic processes, meaning animals burn through their energy stores more slowly. Combined with the efficiency gains of larger size, cold temperatures may favor the evolution of gigantic forms that can survive on minimal food for extended periods. But there is another factor at play, one that might be even more important than metabolism or temperature. In the deep ocean, there are fewer predators. The island rule in evolutionary biology suggests that when species colonize isolated habitats with reduced predation pressure, they may evolve toward larger sizes. The deep ocean is not an island in the traditional sense, but it is isolated by depth, pressure, and darkness. Predators are spread thin in this vast space. Encounters are rare, and for many creatures, the primary limit on growth is not the risk of being eaten, but simply the availability of food. Without the constant evolutionary pressure to stay small and nimble to escape predators, and with the metabolic advantages of large size, natural selection nudges these lineages toward gigantism. Yet, we must be careful not to overstate this phenomenon. Not all deep-sea creatures are giants. Many remain small, and some groups show the opposite trend. The key insight is that deep-sea gigantism occurs particularly in certain groups, especially in vertebrates like crustaceans and cephalopods, where the advantages of size outweigh the costs. In fish, the pattern is more variable, with some species growing large while others remain modest in size. The most iconic example of deep-sea gigantism may be the giant and colossal squids. These creatures have fascinated humans for centuries, appearing in myths and sailors' tales long before science confirmed their existence. The giant squid, Architeuthis, can reach lengths of 40 feet, though much of this is tentacle. The colossal squid, Mesonychoteuthis hamiltoni, is heavier and more robust, with a body built for power rather than length. It possesses the largest eyes in the animal kingdom, each eye measuring up to 11 inches in diameter. These enormous eyes are not mere curiosities. They are precisely adapted organs designed to detect the faintest bioluminescent flickers in the absolute darkness of the deep. With such large eyes, the squid can gather more light, see more detail, and detect prey or predators from greater distances. These squids are also equipped with hooks embedded in their tentacles, rotating barbs that grip prey with brutal efficiency. They hunt in the deep waters of the Southern Ocean, where they battle with sperm whales that dive to extraordinary depths to feed upon them. The bodies of sperm whales are often marked with circular scars, evidence of titanic struggles in the darkness, battles we can only imagine. But among all the strange and wondrous creatures of the deep, perhaps none captures the imagination quite like the anglerfish. If the deep ocean has an ambassador, a single creature that represents all its alien strangeness, it is surely this grotesque and fascinating fish. The anglerfish belongs to a group called the ceratioids, and there are more than 200 species scattered throughout the deep ocean. What they all share is a modified dorsal fin spine that extends forward above the mouth, ending in a bioluminescent lure called an esca. This lure glows with light produced by symbiotic bacteria that live inside the esca, bacteria that the female anglerfish cultivates and maintains throughout her life. The lure dangles in front of the fish like a fishing rod, hence the name anglerfish, and it pulses with light that attracts curious prey. The anglerfish does not chase its food. It cannot afford to, for movement in the deep ocean is expensive, and food is too scarce to waste energy on pursuits that might fail. Instead, the anglerfish waits, suspended in the darkness, its lure glowing softly. Its body is often black or dark brown, absorbing what little light might reach it, rendering it nearly invisible except for that tantalizing glow. When a smaller fish or crustacean approaches, drawn by what appears to be a small, edible, luminescent creature, the anglerfish's enormous jaws snap shut with startling speed. Many anglerfish species have mouths that can unhinge, stomachs that can expand, allowing them to swallow prey nearly as large as themselves. In a world where meals are rare, you cannot afford to be picky about size. But the anglerfish's strangeness does not end with its hunting strategy. The reproductive biology of these fish is among the most bizarre in all of nature. In most anglerfish species, there is extreme sexual dimorphism, meaning males and females are dramatically different. The females, the ones with the lures and the massive jaws, can grow to considerable size, some exceeding 3 feet in length. The males are tiny by comparison, often less, than an inch long, small enough to fit inside a female's mouth. A male anglerfish lives for one purpose: to find a female. He is born with highly developed eyes and a keen sense of smell, and he swims through the vast darkness searching for the chemical signals that might indicate a female nearby. The deep ocean is unimaginably large, and females are spread thin throughout its volume. The chance of a male encountering a female is vanishingly small. So, when he finds one, he does not court her in any traditional sense. Instead, he bites into her body, attaching himself with specialized jaws. Then, something extraordinary happens. His body begins to fuse with hers. His circulatory system merges with her bloodstream. Over time, his eyes degenerate, his organs atrophy, and he becomes essentially a parasitic appendage, a permanent sperm-producing organ attached to the female. The female may carry multiple males fused to her body, ensuring that she can reproduce whenever conditions are favorable, without needing to search for a mate in the darkness. This strategy, called sexual parasitism, makes perfect sense in the context of the deep ocean. Finding a mate in this environment is so unlikely that once you find one, you might as well never let go. The female gains a permanent source of sperm, while the male, despite effectively losing his individual identity, ensures his genes are passed on. It is a solution born of extreme scarcity, of vast distances and perpetual darkness, and it works. As we continue our descent beyond the midnight zone, we pass into the abyssopelagic zone, the abyssal plain, stretching from 4,000 meters to 6,000 meters. This is perhaps the most uniform environment on Earth. A vast, flat expanse of soft sediment extending for thousands upon thousands of miles. The temperature here is a constant 1 to 3 degrees Celsius. The pressure is immense, between 400 and 600 times the atmospheric pressure at sea level. There is no light whatsoever except for the occasional bioluminescent flash. We need to pause here and consider what that pressure means. At sea level, we experience 1 atmosphere of pressure, the weight of all the air above us pressing down. We do not feel it because the fluids in our bodies push back with equal force. But in the ocean, pressure increases by approximately 1 atmosphere for every 10 meters of depth. At 4,000 meters, the pressure is roughly 400 atmospheres. This is sufficient force to compress air to a tiny fraction of its surface volume, which is why creatures with gas-filled spaces, lungs, or swim bladders cannot survive at these depths without special adaptations. Humans require elaborate technology to visit these depths. We build submersibles with thick titanium hulls, spheres designed to withstand the crushing force of the water pressing inward from all sides. Any weakness, any flaw in the structure, and the vehicle would implode instantly, compressed to a fraction of its size before the occupants could even register what was happening. The water at these depths is not just heavy, it is aggressively, lethally heavy. Yet animals live here comfortably, moving and hunting and reproducing as if the pressure were no burden at all. How is this possible? The secret lies in their bodies. Deep sea creatures are composed primarily of water, and water is essentially incompressible. Unlike air, which can be squeezed into a smaller and smaller volume as pressure increases. Water maintains its volume. The cells of deep-sea organisms are filled with water. Their tissues are saturated with water, and because of this, the pressure outside their bodies is matched by the pressure inside. There is no pressure differential, no crushing force, because the pressure is equalized throughout. Deep-sea fish have minimal or no gas-filled swim bladders. Many have soft, gelatinous bodies that offer little resistance to pressure. Their bones are thin and flexible, sometimes reduced to mere cartilaginous structures. Their muscles are often less dense than those of surface fish, giving them a soft, almost watery texture. Some fish are so gelatinous that when brought to the surface, they lose all shape, collapsing into formless blobs as the internal pressure that held their bodies rigid is removed. There is a fascinating consequence to this adaptation. Deep sea creatures cannot easily ascend to shallow water. If they try, the dissolved gases in their tissues, gases that remain in solution under high pressure, begin to come out of solution as pressure decreases. Bubbles form in their blood vessels and tissues, a condition called gas embolism, similar to what human divers experience if they ascend too quickly. For deep-sea animals, this is catastrophic. The bubbles expand, their bodies bloat, and they often die before reaching the surface. They are as trapped in the deep as we are on land. In the abyssopelagic zone, we find creatures that seem to push the boundaries of what we might consider life. There are fish here called snipe eels, with bodies so elongated and thin that they resemble ribbons or whips, stretching over 4 feet long yet no thicker than a pencil. Their jaws curve backward, studded with tiny teeth, forming a beak-like structure that sweeps through the water to catch small crustaceans. The gulper eel, also called the pelican eel, has an enormous mouth that can unhinge to grotesque proportions, allowing it to swallow prey much larger than its own body. Its stomach can distend enormously, and it likely spends most of its time hanging motionless in the water column, mouth agape, waiting for something, anything, to blunder into its trap. There are fish with transparent heads, like the barrel eye fish, whose skull is a clear dome filled with fluid. Inside this dome sit tubular eyes that point upward, scanning the waters above for the silhouettes of prey. The fish can see through its own skull. There are viperfish with fangs so long they cannot close their mouths, teeth that curve backward and inward like the bars of a cage, ensuring that anything caught has no hope of escape. The viperfish also possesses photophores along its body, including a long, glowing dorsal fin ray that extends like a fishing line, luring prey close before the fanged jaws strike. Many creatures here are dark, almost black, their skin containing special pigments that absorb light with extraordinary efficiency. Some deep-sea fish have evolved ultra-black skin that absorbs up to 99.7% of light that strikes it, rendering them nearly invisible even when illuminated by bioluminescence. This adaptation is crucial in a world where most communication happens through light. If you produce light to hunt or attract mates, you risk being seen. But if your skin absorbs that light rather than reflecting it, you become a void, a hole in the darkness, almost impossible to detect visually. Then there are the dragonfish, perhaps the most fearsome predators of the midwater depths. Dragonfish combine multiple adaptations into a single terrifying package. Many species possess large heads filled with dagger-like teeth, some protruding even when the mouth is closed. They have photophores along their bodies and a long barbell, a whisker-like appendage extending from the chin, tipped with a bioluminescent lure. But like the stoplight loosejaw, some dragonfish have evolved the ability to produce red bioluminescence, giving them a secret searchlight invisible to most prey. Their eyes have also adapted to see red light, allowing them to illuminate and hunt without being detected. They drift slowly through the darkness, their barbels glowing and dancing, attracting small fish and crustaceans. When prey comes close, the dragonfish strikes with astonishing speed, its jaws snapping shut in a fraction of a second. Descending still further, we pass 6,000 meters and enter the Hadal Zone, named after Hades, the ancient Greek underworld. This is the deepest part of the ocean, found only in ocean trenches where tectonic plates collide and one plate dives beneath another. The Mariana Trench, the deepest known point on Earth, reaches down nearly 11,000 meters, almost 7 miles below the surface. The pressure at the bottom of the Mariana Trench exceeds 1,000 atmospheres, more than 8 tons per square inch. It is a pressure beyond what most life can tolerate, and yet life persists even here. In recent years, scientists have sent cameras and sampling equipment to the Hadal depths, and what they have found is astonishing. There are fish here, including snailfish that hold the record for the deepest observed fish, filmed at over 8,000 meters. These snailfish are not the sleek, streamlined creatures you might imagine. They are small, pale, gelatinous fish with thin, almost translucent skin. They appear fragile, yet they are extraordinarily tough, their bodies perfectly adapted to the crushing pressure. Their cell membranes contain special lipids that remain fluid under pressure. Their proteins are stabilized by small organic molecules called osmolytes, and their bodies contain high concentrations of an organic compound called trimethylamine oxide that helps their proteins maintain their shape and function despite the extreme conditions. There are amphipods here, small crustaceans related to beachhoppers but much larger. The giant amphipods of the Hadal Zone can grow to several inches long, enormous by amphipod standards. Another example of deep-sea gigantism. These amphipods are scavengers, feeding on whatever organic matter reaches the trench floor. They swarm over the carcasses of dead animals that sink into the depths, stripping flesh with remarkable efficiency. But perhaps the most unexpected residents of the Hadal Zone are microorganisms, bacteria and archaea that thrive in the sediments and water despite the pressure. These are extremophiles, organisms adapted to conditions that would kill most life on Earth. They represent some of the most resilient life forms known, existing at the absolute limits of where biology can function. Studying these microorganisms has profound implications for our understanding of life itself, including the possibility of life existing in extreme environments on other planets or moons, such as the ice-covered ocean of Jupiter's moon Europa. While the Hadal zone is the deepest and most extreme environment, some of the most vibrant and unexpected ecosystems in the deep ocean are found at mid-depths, around 2 to 3,000 meters, where hydrothermal vents puncture the seafloor. These vents are places where seawater percolates down through cracks in the oceanic crust, is heated by magma beneath, and then erupts back into the ocean in superheated plumes, often exceeding 400 degrees Celsius. Because of the immense pressure, the water does not boil but instead remains liquid, shooting upward as dark clouds filled with dissolved minerals, metals, and chemicals. There are two main types of hydrothermal vents. Black smokers emit water rich in iron and sulfur compounds, which precipitate upon contact with cold seawater to form towering chimneys of dark minerals. White smokers emit a water rich in lighter-colored minerals like barium and calcium, forming pale, delicate structures. Both types of vents create chemical-rich environments that support ecosystems utterly unlike anything in the sunlit world. In the surface ocean, life depends on photosynthesis. Plants and photosynthetic bacteria capture sunlight and use its energy to convert carbon dioxide and water into organic compounds. These organisms form the base of nearly every food web on Earth. But around hydrothermal vents, there is no sunlight, no photosynthesis. Instead, life here is based on chemosynthesis, a process in which bacteria use the chemical energy from compounds like hydrogen sulfide, methane, and hydrogen gas to produce organic matter. These chemosynthetic bacteria are the primary producers of the vent ecosystem, and they support an astonishing abundance of life. The most iconic inhabitants of hydrothermal vents are the giant tube worms, Riftia pachyptila. These creatures can grow over 6 feet long, their bodies encased in white tubes anchored to the rocks around the vent. At the top of each tube emerges a brilliant red plume, a gill-like structure filled with blood vessels. The worms have no mouth, no digestive system. They cannot eat in any conventional sense. Instead, they have evolved a symbiotic relationship with chemosynthetic bacteria that live inside their bodies, inside a specialized organ called a trophosome. The worm absorbs hydrogen sulfide and oxygen from the vent water through its plumes, transports these compounds to the bacteria in its trophosome, and the bacteria use the chemical energy to produce organic molecules that nourish the worm. It is a partnership so intimate that the worm literally depends on its bacteria for survival, and the bacteria, in turn, have a protected, stable environment inside the worm. Around the vents, we also find clusters of white crabs and shrimp, mussels and clams that also harbor chemosynthetic bacteria, either in their gills or in their tissues. There are strange blind shrimp that crowd near the vents, their eyes lost to evolution, but their backs covered in a heat-sensing organ that allows them to navigate the temperature gradients near the vent without getting burned. There are octopuses, fish, and even some species of sea anemones, all adapted to life in this chemical-rich, superheated environment. Hydrothermal vent ecosystems are geologically short-lived. A vent may be active for decades or centuries, but eventually, the geological forces that drive the venting shift, and the vent goes cold. When this happens, the entire ecosystem collapses. The tube worms die, the bacteria die, and the abundant life that clustered around the vent disperses or perishes. Yet, new vents are always forming elsewhere along the mid-ocean ridges, and vent-adapted species have evolved ways to disperse over long distances to colonize new sites. Some produce larvae that drift in the deep currents for weeks or months, traveling hundreds of miles in search of the chemical signals that indicate a new vent. It is a precarious existence, dependent on finding these rare oases scattered across the seafloor, but it works. The discovery of hydrothermal vent ecosystems in the late 1970s was revolutionary for biology. It demonstrated that life could exist entirely independent of sunlight, that whole ecosystems could be based on chemical energy rather than solar energy. This finding expanded our understanding of the limits of life and raised the tantalizing possibility that similar ecosystems might exist on other worlds where sunlight is absent, but chemical energy is available. Beyond hydrothermal vents, there are other chemosynthetic ecosystems in the deep ocean. Cold seeps are places where hydrocarbons, methane or oil, seep up through the seafloor. Bacteria at these sites metabolize the hydrocarbons, and once again, communities of tube worms, mussels, and other organisms cluster around these chemical resources. There are also whale falls, the carcasses of dead whales that sink to the seafloor. A single whale fall can sustain a complex ecosystem for decades, first attracting scavengers that strip the flesh, then enriching the sediments with organic matter that supports dense bacterial mats and specialized invertebrates. In the deep sea, where food is scarce, a whale fall is a bonanza, a sudden influx of energy that transforms a small patch of barren seafloor into a thriving community. But how do deep-sea creatures find food when it is so sparse? How do they navigate, hunt, and avoid predators in complete darkness, where vision is nearly useless for most of the day-to-day tasks of survival? The answer lies in sensory adaptations that go far beyond sight. Many deep-sea fish have evolved specialized eyes, but not all of them are designed to see in the way we understand vision. Some eyes are enormous relative to body size, gathering as much light as possible to detect faint bioluminescent flashes. These large eyes are often tubular, pointing in a fixed direction, usually upward, sacrificing peripheral vision for increased sensitivity in one direction. Other fish have reduced or lost their eyes entirely, especially those living on the seafloor or in the Hadal zone, where even bioluminescence is rare. These fish rely on other senses. The lateral line system, present in nearly all fish, becomes especially important in the deep sea. This system consists of a series of sensory organs along the sides of the fish's body that detect pressure changes and water movements. A fish can sense the vibrations caused by another animal moving nearby, even in complete darkness, allowing it to detect prey or avoid predators without seeing them. Some deep-sea fish have elaborate, extended lateral lines, with filamentous fins or barbels that extend their sensory reach far beyond their bodies. Electroreception is another sense used by some deep-sea creatures. Certain fish, including some sharks and rays, have specialized organs called ampullae of Lorenzini that detect electric fields. All living things produce weak electric fields due to the activity of their muscles and nerves, and electroreceptive predators can sense these fields, allowing them to locate prey even when it is hidden or camouflaged. Chemical senses, smell, and taste, are also highly developed in deep-sea animals. Water carries chemical signals effectively, and many creatures use these signals to find food, mates, or to navigate. Some deep-sea fish have highly sensitive olfactory organs that can detect minute concentrations of chemicals drifting in the water, allowing them to follow scent trails to their source across considerable distances. Perhaps most intriguing are the creatures that use bioluminescence not just passively, but as a form of active sensing, similar to how bats use echolocation. Some squid produce flashes of light and then observe the reflections or reactions of nearby animals, effectively using light as a probe to map their surroundings. This strategy is risky because it reveals the squid's location, but it provides information that would otherwise be impossible to obtain in the darkness. Cephalopods, the group that includes squid, octopuses, and cuttlefish, are among the most intelligent and adaptable creatures in the deep ocean. While octopuses are more commonly associated with shallow reefs, there are deep-sea species that have evolved remarkable adaptations to abyssal life. The Dumbo octopus, named for its ear-like fins that resemble the cartoon elephant's ears, drifts through the water at depths of up to 7,000 meters. Unlike most octopuses that crawl along the seafloor using their arms, the Dumbo octopus swims by, flapping its fins and pulsing its webbed arms, hovering gracefully in the water column. It feeds on small crustaceans and worms that it finds on or near the seafloor, and its body is soft and gelatinous, perfectly suited to withstand the immense pressure. Squid are diverse and abundant in the deep ocean, ranging from tiny species no larger than a fingernail to the giant and colossal squids we discussed earlier. Many deep-sea squid are transparent or translucent, a form of camouflage that makes them nearly invisible in the darkness. The glass squid, for instance, has a body so clear that you can see its internal organs suspended inside. The only opaque parts are its eyes, which must remain solid to function, though even these are often positioned in ways that minimize their silhouette. Transparency is an effective strategy in the open ocean, but it comes with challenges. Anything inside the animal that is not transparent, such as food in the stomach, will show up as a dark mass, potentially giving away its location. Some transparent squid have bioluminescent organs on their digestive systems that mask the dark mass of food, essentially camouflaging the contents of their stomachs. The vampire squid, despite its name and somewhat sinister appearance with its dark webbing and red eyes, is actually a gentle creature. It occupies a unique ecological niche in the oxygen minimum zone, a layer of water between roughly 600 and 1,200 meters, where oxygen levels drop to extremely low concentrations. Most animals cannot survive in these conditions, but the vampire squid has evolved highly efficient oxygen extraction from the water, allowing it to inhabit a zone with relatively few predators. When threatened, it can turn itself inside out, wrapping its arms and webbing around its body, exposing rows of fleshy spines that make it look larger and less appetizing. Its bioluminescent defense, releasing glowing mucus, adds to its repertoire of anti-predator strategies. But the deep sea is not just a realm of bizarre fish and cephalopods. there are jellyfish here as well, drifting through the darkness in forms both delicate and enormous. The Stygiomedusa jellyfish, named after the river Styx from Greek mythology, has a bell that can exceed 3 feet in diameter, trailing long, thick oral arms that may reach over 30 feet in length. Unlike the stinging tentacles of many jellyfish, these oral arms are used to capture and engulf prey, wrapping around small fish or jellyfish and drawing them toward the mouth. Stygiomedusa is rarely seen, and much about its life remains mysterious, but encounters with submersibles have revealed a creature of strange alien grace, pulsing slowly through the abyssal darkness. Another striking jellyfish of the deep is the big red jellyfish, Tiburonia gran rojo, which can grow to over 3 feet across. It is unusual among jellyfish for lacking tentacles entirely, instead possessing thick, fleshy arms that extend from its body. The big red jellyfish lives at depths of 600 to 1,500 meters and moves through the water with slow, deliberate pulsations. Its red color, like that of many deep-sea creatures, renders it effectively invisible in the darkness, as red wavelengths do not penetrate to these depths, and most animals cannot see red light. Sea cucumbers, relatives of starfish and sea urchins, are abundant on the deep-sea floor, where they play a crucial role as detritivores, organisms that feed on dead organic matter. They crawl slowly across the sediment, ingesting mud and extracting whatever nutrients they can find. Some deep-sea sea cucumbers have evolved bizarre adaptations, such as the sea pig, a pink, bloated creature with multiple leg-like appendages that walks across the abyssal plain, or the swimming sea cucumber, which has developed the ability to lift off the seafloor and swim through the water using undulating body movements. There are also sea spiders in the deep, though these are not true spiders, but rather marine arthropods belonging to the class Pycnogonida. Some deep-sea species display gigantism, with leg spans exceeding 20 inches. They move slowly across the seafloor on their long, spindly legs, feeding on soft-bodied invertebrates like anemones and sponges. Their bodies are so small relative to their legs that some of their organs, including parts of their digestive system, extend into the legs themselves. As we consider this vast catalog of strange creatures, it is worth reflecting on just how little we know about the deep ocean. Despite being the largest habitat on Earth, covering over 60% of our planet's surface and containing more than 90% of its habitable volume, the deep ocean remains largely unexplored. We have better maps of the surface of Mars than we do of our own ocean floor. Fewer people have visited the deepest parts of the ocean than have walked on the moon. Every expedition to the deep reveals new species, new behaviors, new ecosystems. In recent years, scientists have discovered thriving communities of life in places previously thought to be barren, such as beneath the seafloor itself, where microorganisms live in the pores of rocks, metabolizing minerals and existing in total darkness, cut off from the surface world for millions of years. We have found ecosystems living beneath Antarctic ice shelves, in the water trapped between the ice and the seafloor, sustained by chemosynthetic bacteria. We have observed behaviors in deep-sea creatures that challenge our understanding of intelligence and adaptation. The deep ocean also serves as a crucial regulator of Earth's climate. The ocean absorbs vast amounts of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, and much of this carbon eventually sinks into the deep as organic matter, where it is stored for centuries or longer. The deep ocean currents, driven by differences in temperature and salinity, circulate water around the globe in a process called thermohaline circulation, distributing heat and nutrients and playing a critical role in regulating global climate. Yet this vast and vital ecosystem faces growing threats. Climate change is warming even the deep ocean, slowly but measurably altering temperature and oxygen levels. Ocean acidification, caused by the absorption of excess carbon dioxide, is changing the chemistry of seawater, making it harder for creatures with calcium carbonate shells or skeletons to survive. Overfishing and pollution from the surface world are reaching even the deepest parts of the ocean, with plastic debris found in the stomachs of creatures from the Mariana Trench and other Hadal zones. Perhaps most concerning is the emerging threat of deep-sea mining. Companies are now exploring the possibility of extracting valuable minerals, rare earth elements, cobalt, nickel, and copper from the seafloor, particularly from polymetallic nodules scattered across the abyssal plains. These nodules, potato-sized lumps of metal-rich rock, have formed over millions of years, and they sit on a seafloor that is home to poorly understood ecosystems. Mining operations would strip away the seafloor sediments, destroying habitats and creating plumes of suspended particles that could drift for hundreds of miles, smothering filter-feeding organisms and disrupting ecosystems far from the mining site itself. The deep sea is not a wasteland. It is not an empty, barren space waiting to be exploited. It is a living, functioning ecosystem, home to countless species, many of which we have not yet discovered, let alone studied or understood. The creatures that live there have evolved over hundreds of millions of years to thrive in one of the most extreme environments on Earth, and they are not equipped to adapt to rapid, human-caused changes. There is something profoundly humbling about the deep ocean. It reminds us that our planet still holds mysteries, still harbors frontiers that we have barely begun to explore. The creatures that live in the eternal darkness, that glow with their own light, that grow to enormous sizes, or survive in crushing pressure and near-freezing temperatures, are not merely curiosities. They are testaments to the resilience and creativity of life itself. When we think about life, we often imagine it in familiar terms: sunlight, oxygen, moderate temperatures, and abundant food. But the deep ocean teaches us that life can thrive under conditions that seem impossible by surface standards. It shows us that evolution is endlessly inventive, finding solutions to problems we might not have even imagined. Bioluminescence, chemosynthesis, pressure adaptation, deep-sea gigantism. All of these are biological innovations that arose in response to the unique challenges of the deep. They expand our understanding of what life can be, and they hint at the possibilities for life in other extreme environments, whether in the deep ocean of an ice-covered moon or in the acidic clouds of Venus. The creatures of the deep sea also inspire a sense of wonder that is increasingly rare in our modern, well-documented world. We live in an age where it seems like everything has been explored, cataloged, and explained. Yet the deep ocean remains largely unknown, and every dive brings the possibility of encountering something never before seen. Some creature that defies expectations or challenges assumptions. This sense of discovery, of genuine mystery, is precious, and it reminds us why exploration matters, not just for practical reasons, but for the simple human desire to know what else is out there, to see what wonders the universe holds. As our journey through the deep comes to an end, we begin our ascent, rising slowly through the layers of the ocean. We pass through the Hadal trenches, the abyssal plains, the midnight zone, and back into the faint twilight of the Mesopelagic. The water around us grows lighter. The pressure eases, and eventually we break the surface into the familiar world of air and sunlight. But something has changed. We carry with us now a deeper appreciation for the hidden world beneath the waves, for the vast and alien ecosystem that covers most of our planet's surface. We have seen creatures that glow in the dark, that grow to monstrous sizes, that hunt with light, and survive in conditions that would instantly kill us. We have glimpsed ecosystems powered by chemical energy rather than sunlight. Communities that thrive in boiling water or crushing pressure or eternal cold. And we have been reminded that Earth, our home, is far stranger and more wonderful than we often remember. The deep sea is not a distant, irrelevant place. It is part of our planet, intimately connected to the surface world through ocean currents, through the cycling of nutrients, through the regulation of climate. What happens in the deep affects the surface, and what we do on the surface affects the deep. The choices we make about carbon emissions, pollution, and resource extraction will determine the future of these extraordinary ecosystems and the creatures that inhabit them. But tonight, as you settle into rest, let the deep ocean remain a place of quiet wonder in your mind. Let the image of glowing creatures drifting in the darkness, of giant squid with eyes like dinner plates, of tube worms swaying in superheated water, of fish that make their own light in the eternal night. Let these images be a source of peace and fascination. You do not need to solve the problems of ocean conservation tonight. You do not need to understand every adaptation or remember every species' name. You need only to rest, to breathe, to let your mind drift through the gentle darkness like a deep sea creature, perfectly at home in its world. If this journey brought you peace or sparked your curiosity, I invite you once more to like this video and subscribe to the Sleepy Science Society. Your support helps us continue creating these gentle explorations of science and nature, and it helps others discover this calm corner where learning and rest intertwine. For now, let go. Let your shoulders drop. Let your breathing slow and deepen. Let the weight of the day lift away like a deep sea creature rising through the water column, growing lighter as it ascends. You have traveled to the deepest parts of the ocean tonight, seen wonders that most people will never witness, and now you can rest knowing that the world is vast and full of marvels, that mystery still exists, that there are still frontiers waiting to be explored. The creatures of the deep do not rush. They drift, they wait, they move with slow purpose through the darkness. Tonight, you can move like them, letting time slow, letting urgency fade, allowing the quiet to settle around you like the soft sediments of the abyssal plain. Good night, explorer of the deep. Good night, seeker of wonder. Let the darkness be gentle. Let the pressure ease. Let yourself sink into rest as naturally bit as marine snow falling through the water column, drifting down, 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 until you settle softly into sleep.